The conference hall stretched across 3 miles of polished crystal, carved from the heart of Axis Prime itself. Representatives from 7 major civilizations sat in their designated sections, their forms as varied as the stars themselves. The Vryn Dominion occupied the largest space, their insectoid bodies gleaming under the artificial lights. Commander Jothik stood at the center podium, his forearms gesturing as he spoke about expansion territories and resource allocation. No one paid much attention anymore. These meetings had become routine over the past 1,000 years. The Vryn controlled most of the known galaxy, and everyone else simply nodded along to avoid conflict. It was easier that way. The wars had ended centuries ago, and nobody wanted them to start again. In the Scholars' Gallery, Pelnara sat alone with her data tablets. She was Quileth, a species known for their 6 eyes and their obsession with history. While others discussed trade routes and mining rights, she studied the past. Specifically, she studied humans. Most people thought humans were myths, ancient stories told to children about a species that flew too close to dangerous knowledge and paid the price. But Pelnara knew better. She had spent 30 years of her life excavating human ruins across 12 different worlds. The evidence was undeniable. Humans had been real, and they had been everywhere. Their cities still stood in some places, turned to dust and rust, but clearly designed by intelligent hands. Their machines could still be found buried deep underground, technology so advanced that modern scientists could barely understand the basic principles. Their language had been decoded 50 years ago, revealing libraries of information about mathematics, physics, art, and philosophy. And then, 40,000 years ago, they had simply vanished. Every human in the galaxy disappeared within the span of a single generation. No bodies, no goodbye messages, no explanation, just empty cities and silent machines. The meeting droned on. Commander Jothik was now discussing the Outer Veil, the region of space that marked the edge of explored territory. Few ships ventured there anymore. The Vryn had marked it as low priority, containing only dead systems and stellar debris. Pelnara's tablet buzzed. An urgent message from the Vryn patrol station at the Veil's edge. She frowned and opened it, expecting another mundane report about asteroid drift or stellar wind measurements. What she read made her stand up so quickly that her chair clattered backward. The sound echoed through the hall. Everyone turned to look at her. Commander Jothik's compound eyes fixed on her location. "Scholar Pelnara?" His voice boomed through the translation systems. "Do you have something to contribute?" She hesitated. The message was marked for military command only. She should not have received it at all. But her security clearance as chief human archaeologist gave her access to anything potentially related to human artifacts. The automated systems had flagged this message and sent it to her. "Commander," she said, her voice shaking slightly, "I believe there is an urgent matter that requires the Council's immediate attention." Jothik's mandibles clicked in annoyance. "This is not the time for archaeological curiosities, scholar. We are discussing matters of galactic importance." "This is of galactic importance," Pelnara insisted. She transmitted the message to the central display. The holographic projection showed sensor data from Patrol Group 7 Theta. At first, it looked like standard readings, nothing unusual. Then the timestamp shifted to 43 minutes ago, and everything changed. A ship had appeared at the edge of the Outer Veil. The sensor profile was impossible. The vessel measured 3 kilometers in length, with a hull configuration that matched nothing in any modern database. The energy signature was weak, barely registering, yet the ship had emerged from dark space, a region where nothing should exist. "A derelict," Jothik said dismissively. "Ancient debris that drifted into sensor range." "No, Commander." Pelnara zoomed in on the temporal data. It appeared, instantaneously. One moment there was nothing. The next moment this ship existed. "That's not drift, that's a jump. Impossible. No ship can jump from dark space. The energy requirements would be astronomical." "No modern ship," Pelnara corrected. She pulled up a comparison image on a secondary display. It was a human warship, reconstructed from archaeological evidence and ancient human databases. "Commander, the hull configuration matches. This is a human vessel." The conference hall erupted into chaos. Representatives from all 7 civilizations began shouting at once. The Vryn delegation buzzed angrily. The Quileth scholars demanded immediate investigation. The Thane Collective, usually peaceful traders, began calculating the potential value of human technology. Jothik raised all four arms, commanding silence. Enough. Patrol 7 Theta, respond. What is the status of this vessel? The communication channel crackled. A Vrin patrol officer's voice came through, tense and uncertain. Commander, we attempted to hail the vessel 40 minutes ago. No response. We moved to intercept at safe distance, following standard protocol for unidentified craft. And? It moved, Commander. Not with thrusters or visible propulsion. It simply shifted position. One moment it was holding steady at coordinates 77 Mark III. The next moment it was gone. Define gone, officer. Gone, Commander. Vanished. No jump signature, no energy discharge. Our sensors show it simply ceased to exist at those coordinates and began existing at new coordinates 18,000 kilometers away. Instantaneous movement. The conference hall fell silent. What the officer described was theoretically possible in quantum physics, but no civilization had ever achieved it. The energy required would destroy the ship attempting it. Where is it now? Jothik demanded. Unknown, Commander. It vanished completely 4 minutes after our intercept attempt. We detected a space-time distortion like a wake in water and then nothing. We've been scanning for 39 minutes with no contact. Pelnara's hearts were racing. All three of them pounded in her chest. Commander, we need to organize an expedition. If this truly is a human ship, active after 40,000 years, the historical significance, the military significance, Jothik interrupted. Scholar, you may understand human history, but I understand warfare. A ship that can appear and disappear at will, that can move without conventional propulsion, represents a strategic threat. This vessel must be located and secured. Secured? Pelnara felt anger rising. Commander, this could be the greatest archaeological discovery in galactic history. We should be preparing a research team, not a military strike force. We will do both, Jothik said firmly. I am authorizing full military mobilization in the Outer Veil region. All available forces will converge on the last known coordinates. Scholar Pelnara, you will accompany the fleet as historical advisor. I protest this approach, Commander. If there are humans aboard that ship, they have been in stasis or suspended animation for 40,000 years, Jothik said. They will be disoriented, possibly hostile. They will find themselves in a galaxy that has moved on without them. The Vrin Dominion now controls the territories that humanity once claimed. We must establish dominance immediately or risk conflict. Pelnara wanted to argue, but she knew it was pointless. The Vrin thought in terms of conquest and control. It was their nature. Instead, she nodded and began gathering her research materials. If she was going to the Outer Veil, she would need every piece of information about human technology she could carry. The conference dissolved into emergency sessions. Within an hour, the Vrin military had mobilized 3 full battle groups. 70 warships, each carrying enough firepower to crack a planet's crust, began their journey toward the Outer Veil. Pelnara boarded the command carrier Undaunted, a massive vessel that served as Jothik's flagship. Her quarters were small but functional, located near the research laboratories. She spent the 3-day journey reviewing everything known about human spacecraft. The files were extensive but incomplete. Humans had built vessels of incredible variety. Simple cargo haulers, elegant passenger liners, sturdy colony ships, and warships. The humans had been very good at building warships. According to the historical records, humans had been relatively peaceful by galactic standards. They preferred trade and diplomacy over conquest. But when threatened, they had proven to be fierce defenders of their territory. Several extinct species had learned that lesson too late. The ship in the sensor data matched a specific human design, a Phantom-class cruiser. Only 12 had ever been built according to the recovered archives. They were the pinnacle of human military technology, designed for long-range patrol and deep space reconnaissance. Each one had been named after supernatural concepts from human mythology. The Phantom, the Wraith, the Spectre, the Ghost. Pelnara studied the technical specifications with growing concern. Even by human standards, these ships had been extraordinary. They carried experimental drive systems, advanced weaponry, and artificial intelligence cores that bordered on true sentience. A Phantom-class cruiser, fully operational, would be more than a match for any modern vessel. And if it had survived 40,000 years in dark space, who knew what modifications or upgrades it might have received? On the third day, the fleet reached the outer veil. Sensors swept the entire region searching for any sign of the mysterious ship. For 6 hours, they found nothing. Then, just as Commander Jathik was about to order a wider search pattern, the sensors screamed an alert. The ship had returned. It appeared exactly where it had vanished 3 days earlier, as if it had never left. The same 3-kilometer hull, the same impossible energy signature. But this time it was not alone. Pelnara rushed to the command deck, her data tablet clutched in her hands. The main display showed the ship in perfect detail. It was beautiful in a deadly sort of way. The hull was dark gray, almost black with smooth lines that suggested both speed and power. No light showed along its surface, giving it the appearance of a shadow against the stars. "Hail it," Jathik commanded. "All frequencies, all known languages including human." The communication officer worked frantically. "Broadcasting now, Commander. Standard greeting protocols in 17 languages, including reconstructed human English." They waited. Seconds stretched into minutes. The ship simply hung in space, not moving, not responding. "Again," Jathik ordered. More broadcasts. Still nothing. "Commander," the tactical officer spoke up. "I'm detecting power fluctuations along the ship's hull. Something is charging. Shields up. All vessels, defensive formations." The fleet scrambled into position, 70 warships arranging themselves into overlapping protective patterns. Weapons powered up, ready to fire. The human ship did not attack. Instead, it turned. Slowly, deliberately, it rotated to face the Vryn fleet. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a light appeared on its hull. A single point of blue-white brilliance like a star being born. The light pulsed once, twice, 3 times. "It's scanning us," the sensor officer reported. "Some kind of active sensor sweep. I've never seen anything like it. It's reading our hull composition, our weapon systems, even our crew biosignatures. Can you block it?" "No, Commander. It's passing through our shields like they don't exist." The light pulsed 3 more times, then faded. The ship continued to drift, silent and still. Pelnara stepped forward. "Commander, I don't think it's hostile. That scan, it was gathering information. They're trying to understand what we are, just as we're trying to understand what they are. Or they're assessing our weaknesses before attacking," Jathik countered. "If they wanted to attack, they would have done so already," Pelnara argued. "Commander, please let me try something." Jathik's mandibles clicked in thought. Finally, he nodded. "What do you propose?" Pelnara moved to a communication console. She pulled up a file from her tablet. A simple mathematical sequence that had been found in every human structure across the galaxy. Humans had used it as a universal greeting, a way to signal intelligence and peaceful intent. She transmitted the sequence on all frequencies. For 10 seconds, nothing happened. Then the human ship's light appeared again. This time it pulsed in the exact same mathematical sequence. They had made contact. Pelnara's hands shook as she prepared a second message. This one was more complex, a series of prime numbers followed by basic physics constants, things that would be universal to any species with advanced mathematics. The response came faster this time. The ship repeated her message, then added its own sequence. Pelnara's eyes widened as she decoded it. It was a date, 40,247 years ago, the last time humans had walked the galaxy.
"They know how long they've been gone," she whispered.
Before she could send another message, every alarm on the command deck began screaming at once. The human ship was moving again, but not away from them. It was coming closer. "Weapons ready," Jathik roared. "All ships prepare to fire on my command." "Wait!" Pelnara shouted. "Look at its weapons. They're not powered." She was right. The ship's weapon ports remained dark and cold. It approached the fleet slowly, almost cautiously, like a wild animal deciding whether to trust. It stopped exactly 1,000 kilometers from the Undaunted. At this distance, both ships could destroy each other within seconds. It was a position of mutual vulnerability. The blue light pulsed again. This time, a holographic image formed in the space between the two ships. It showed a human figure projected larger than life. The figure wore a dark uniform with symbols that Pelnara recognized from ancient human military records. And then, after 40,000 years of silence, the human ship spoke. The words came in English, clear and unmistakable, translated instantly by the Undaunted's computers. "This is Captain Marcus Thorne of the Terran Federation ship Phantom. We have been on patrol for 40,000 years. Our mission is complete. Who commands this space now? The holographic image of Captain Marcus Thorne stood between the two ships, waiting for a response. Commander Jothik stared at the human figure with a mixture of fascination and suspicion. The human appeared to be middle-aged by their species standards, with short dark hair graying at the temples and eyes that looked tired beyond measure. "I am Commander Jothik of the Vryn Dominion," Jothik finally responded. "We control this region of space and most of known territory beyond it. Your species vanished 40,000 years ago. Where have you been?" The human's expression did not change, but something flickered in his eyes. Sadness, perhaps, or regret. "We never left, Commander. The Phantom has been on patrol this entire time, maintaining watch over the boundary. My crew and I have been in rotating stasis, awakening once every century to check our systems and scan the darkness." "Patrol against what?" Pelnara asked, unable to contain herself. "What could possibly require 40,000 years of vigilance?" Captain Thorne's image turned to face her. "You are Quilith, yes? I recognize the species from our historical databases. You were a young civilization when we left. Barely reaching your second planet. You've grown." He paused. "And you study humans. I can see the archaeological notation on your uniform." "I am Scholar Pelnara," she confirmed. "I have dedicated my life to understanding your people." "Captain, where did humanity go? Why did you leave?" "We didn't leave by choice, Scholar. We left by necessity, and I'm afraid the reason for our departure has become relevant again." The hologram gestured and new images appeared. They showed star charts, mathematical formulas, and readings that made no sense to anyone on the Vryn ship. "I don't understand these readings," Jothik said. "You wouldn't," Captain Thorne replied. "These sensors measure dimensional instability, quantum decay, and space-time fractures. Technologies your civilizations haven't developed yet. These readings are from 40,000 years ago, just before humanity's evacuation." He manipulated the hologram, showing a timeline. 15 years before the evacuation, our deep space monitoring stations detected something at the edge of the universe. Something beyond the cosmic horizon, in the space between galaxies. We called them the Architects. Pelnara felt her blood run cold. Something in the way Captain Thorne said that name carried terrible weight. "The Architects are not beings as you understand them," the captain continued. "They exist partially in our dimension and partially in others. They are old, Scholar, older than the current universe. They survived the previous cosmic cycle and learned to exist in the space between realities." "What do they want?" Jothik asked. "They consume," Thorne said simply. "They move through the universe, selecting galaxies and collapsing them into pocket dimensions. They harvest the matter and energy, using it for purposes we could never fully understand. Our scientists estimated that they had already consumed hundreds of galaxies. Ours was next." The command deck fell silent. Even Jothik, usually so confident and aggressive, seemed shaken by this revelation. "Humanity had a choice," Thorne continued. "We could fight them and lose, dooming not just ourselves but every other species in the galaxy. Or we could evacuate." "How do you evacuate an entire species?" Pelnara asked. "With great difficulty and greater sacrifice." The hologram shifted again, showing massive ring structures surrounding various planets. "We built dimensional gates, one-way portals to parallel universes where the Architects could not follow. It took us 10 years to construct enough gates to evacuate our entire population. 37 billion humans passed through those gates, scattered across hundreds of different realities. But you stayed," Jothik observed. "Someone had to." Thorne's voice was quiet. "The Architects were still coming, still approaching our galaxy. We calculated that they would arrive within 5,000 years. So we built countermeasures, dimensional anchors placed throughout the galaxy, devices that could create a resonance field to push the Architects back into dark space. And we left behind the Phantom to maintain watch, to ensure the threat never arrived." "Did it work?" Pelnara asked. "For 40,000 years, yes. The anchors held. The Architects detected the field and moved on to easier targets. They circled around our galaxy, heading toward others. The Phantom has been monitoring their progress, watching them devour galaxy after galaxy in the distance." He paused, and his expression grew grim. But 3 months ago something changed. New images appeared in the hologram, recent sensor data, showing the same impossible readings from 40,000 years ago. "The Architects are coming back. The resonance field is weakening, destabilizing." They've detected it and they're curious. Or perhaps they're simply finishing what they started so long ago. Thorn looked directly at Jathik. Your Dominion's expansion into the outer veil, your quantum experiments and dimensional research, it's been creating interference patterns. You've been weakening the anchors without knowing they existed. Jathik's mandibles clicked angrily. You dare blame us for— I'm not blaming anyone, Commander, Thorn interrupted. You didn't know. How could you? Humanity left no warnings, no records of the architects. We believed that if we survived, if we held them off long enough, they would move on permanently. We were wrong. The hologram showed a projection, mathematical models of the architect's approach. According to the data, they would reach the galaxy's edge in approximately 6 months. 6 months, Pelnara whispered. What happens when they arrive? Based on their patterns in other galaxies, they will begin at the outer edges and work their way inward. Stars will disappear first, collapsed into dimensional pockets, then planets, then entire systems. The process takes approximately 50 years to consume a galaxy the size of ours. Every civilization, every species, every living thing will cease to exist in this reality. Jathik stood motionless, processing this information. Finally, he spoke. What can we do? How did humanity plan to stop them? Humanity planned to be gone, Thorn said. The Phantom was meant to observe and record, nothing more. We never expected to fight. But circumstances have changed. I've spent the last 3 months since detecting their return reactivating old human facilities, checking the status of the dimensional anchors. Many are still functional, but the network is incomplete. The resonance field can be restored, but it requires coordination across the entire galaxy. And if we restore this field? Jathik asked. The architects will be repelled. They'll move on to easier targets just as they did before. Then we will do it. I will mobilize the Dominion's full resources. We will repair these anchors of yours. Thorn shook his head. It's not that simple, Commander. The anchors were built with human technology, tied to human biosignatures. Only the Phantom can activate them. And there's another problem. What problem? Activating the full resonance field will seal the galaxy off from dimensional space. Completely. No dimensional gates, no quantum tunneling, no access to higher dimensions. Your faster-than-light travel, your quantum communications, all of it relies on accessing dimensional space. When the field activates, all of that will stop working. The implications hit everyone on the command deck simultaneously. Without FTL travel, the galaxy would become impossibly vast. Civilizations spread across thousands of light years would be cut off from each other. Trade would collapse. Communication would be limited to light speed. It would be a technological dark age. For how long? Jathik demanded. The resonance field must remain active for at least 40,000 years to ensure the architects don't return. Maybe longer. Unacceptable. You're asking us to sacrifice our entire civilization. I'm asking you to survive, Thorn said firmly. Yes, it will be difficult. Yes, your civilizations will change, adapt, perhaps even collapse in some regions. But you will survive. The alternative is complete annihilation. Before Jathik could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. The sensor officer shouted over the noise. Commander? Multiple contacts appearing at the edge of the system. I'm reading 12, 17, 23 vessels. They're appearing out of nowhere. The tactical display updated, showing ships materializing throughout the system. Not Vryn ships, not any known design. These vessels were sleek and dark, similar to the Phantom but smaller. Each one carried the same impossible energy signature. Those are Hunter-class destroyers, Thorn said calmly. Automated human warships. I activated them when I detected the architect's return. They've been conducting reconnaissance, gathering information about the current state of the galaxy. You've been spying on us, Jathik accused. I've been assessing the situation. Commander, I needed to know what civilizations now exist, what military capabilities you possess, and whether you would be able to help or hinder our mission. The Hunters have been observing your Dominion, and others for the past 3 months. Other civilizations? Pelnara asked. The Thane Collective, the Quileth Alliance, the Saurian Empire, and 4 others. I've been preparing to contact all of them. But then your patrol detected the Phantom, and I had to accelerate my timeline. On the tactical display, the Hunter ships began moving into formation around the Phantom. It was a defensive pattern, Pelnara realized. They were protecting their flagship. Jathik's voice was dangerous. Captain Thorn, you appear in our space with a fleet of warships. Tell us the galaxy is doomed and demand we accept technological regression for 40,000 years. Why should we trust you? You shouldn't, Thorne said bluntly. You should verify everything I've told you. Study the data I've provided. Consult with your scientists. Send expeditions to examine the dimensional anchors. Take whatever time you need to confirm the threat is real. And how much time do we have? You have 6 months until the architects arrive. I recommend you use that time wisely. The hologram flickered and began to fade. I'm transmitting coordinates for the nearest dimensional anchor. It's located in the Kepler-442 system, about 7 light-years from here. You'll find an ancient human installation on the 4th planet. Study it, test it. See for yourselves that I'm telling the truth. Wait, Pelnara called out. Captain Thorne, what will you do now? The human's image stabilized for a moment. I have 714 anchors to check and repair. I have automated hunter ships to deploy, monitoring stations to reactivate, and defensive systems to prepare. In 6 months, when the architects arrive, the Phantom will be ready to activate the resonance field. Whether the rest of the galaxy is ready, that's up to you. The hologram vanished. The Phantom and its hunter escort began to move, accelerating to impossible speeds. Within seconds, they had disappeared, leaving only the subtle distortion of disturbed space-time. Jothik stood in silence for a long moment. Finally, he turned to his crew. Navigation, set course for the Kepler-442 system. Science Division, prepare full analysis equipment. Scholar Pelnara, I want you to assemble every piece of information we have about human technology. Yes, Commander, Pelnara said, her mind already racing. What are you thinking? I'm thinking that if a human who has been on patrol for 40,000 years tells me the galaxy is doomed, I should probably listen. But I'm also thinking that I don't trust easily, especially when the person asking for trust controls a fleet of warships more advanced than anything we possess. The Undaunted turned and began its journey to the Kepler system, the rest of the fleet following. Pelnara returned to her quarters and immediately began reviewing every file she had on human technology, human history, and most importantly, human honesty. In her 30 years of studying humanity, she had learned one consistent truth about them. They were capable of incredible kindness and terrible violence, of great wisdom and profound foolishness. But one thing the historical records showed clearly: when humans said they would protect something, they did it, even if it cost them everything. Captain Marcus Thorne had stayed on patrol for 40,000 years, alone except for his crew, watching over a galaxy that no longer remembered his people existed. That kind of dedication, that kind of sacrifice, spoke to something fundamental about human nature. She just hoped that the rest of the galaxy would see it the same way, because if Captain Thorne was telling the truth, they had 6 months to prepare for a threat that had made humanity itself choose extinction over confrontation. And if he was lying, well, they had just let a human warship and its fleet vanish into the darkness, with the knowledge and capability to destroy every civilization in the galaxy. Either way, the next 6 months would determine the fate of everything that lived under these stars. The journey to Kepler-442 took 4 days at maximum FTL speed. During that time, Pelnara barely slept. She spent every waking hour analyzing the data that Captain Thorne had transmitted, cross-referencing it with everything humanity had left behind in their ruins. The mathematics checked out. The physics, as strange as it was, followed consistent rules. The sensor readings matched theoretical models that human scientists had published 40,000 years ago, papers that Pelnara had studied but never fully understood. Now, with the new context, those papers suddenly made terrible sense. The humans had known. They had detected something impossible and responded by doing the impossible themselves. They had evacuated an entire species across dimensional barriers, leaving behind only guardians and warnings that time had erased. On the 3rd day of travel, Jothik called an emergency meeting in the war room. The space was designed for military planning, with holographic displays showing tactical information and fleet positions. But today it showed something different. We've received responses from the other major civilizations, Jothik announced. Representatives from 6 other species appeared as holograms around the table. Pelnara recognized them all: the Thane Collective's Trademaster, the Quileth Alliance's High Scholar, the Saurian Empire's War Chief, and others. I assume you all received the same information we did. Jothik continued. An ancient human warship claims of a galaxy-ending threat, demands for cooperation. I want to know what your people have discovered. The Thane trademaster spoke first, his gelatinous form rippling with concern. We sent a research team to the coordinates provided. They found a human installation on the third moon of Thane 7. It's been dormant for 40,000 years, but when they activated it using the codes the human ship provided, it came to life. The technology is real, Commander, more advanced than anything we've seen. The Quillith Alliance confirms similar findings, the High Scholar added. We examined an installation in the Andromeda Drift. The dimensional sensors are functioning. They're detecting exactly what the human captain described. Space-time fractures, quantum decay. Something is coming. One by one, the other civilizations reported the same findings. They had all sent teams to investigate, and they had all found the same truth. The dimensional anchors were real. The technology was functional, and the threat was approaching. Jothik's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. So the human was telling the truth. The question now is, what do we do about it? We activate the resonance field, obviously, the Saurian war chief growled. If this threat is real, we have no choice. And lose all FTL capability for 40,000 years. The Thane trademaster protested. My people are spread across 300 star systems. Without FTL, our civilization will collapse within a generation. We'll starve before we adapt. Better to starve than to not exist at all, the Saurian countered. Easy for you to say. Your empire controls 12 systems, all within 50 light years of each other. You could maintain sublight contact. Most of us cannot. The argument escalated quickly, each civilization calculating what they stood to lose. Pelnara listened, understanding their fear. The Vryn Dominion controlled vast territories, but they could potentially adapt. Species like the Thane, who had spread far and wide, would suffer immensely. Enough, Jothik commanded. We're approaching the Kepler system. Let's examine this anchor ourselves before making any decisions. This meeting is suspended until we have more information. The holograms vanished. Jothik turned to Pelnara. Scholar, what's your assessment? Captain Thorne is telling the truth, she said without hesitation. Everything he's shown us matches human records. The installations are real, the threat is real. But Commander, I don't think he's told us everything. Explain. The humans were methodical. They documented everything, planned for every contingency. If they built a defense network this extensive, they would have left detailed instructions. But Captain Thorne is being selective about what information he shares. He's testing us. Testing us how? I think he wants to see if we'll cooperate voluntarily, if we'll trust his word and work together. Because the alternative, forcing us to cooperate, would make us enemies. And I suspect Captain Thorne doesn't want humanity's return to be marked by conflict. Humanity's return? Jothik's compound eyes focused sharply on her. You think they're coming back? The dimensional gates were one way, but the anchors, the Phantom, the entire defense network, it's all still here. The humans didn't abandon this galaxy, Commander. They're keeping it safe. For themselves or for us, I'm not sure. But yes, I think they plan to return someday. Before Jothik could respond, the ship dropped out of FTL. The Kepler 442 system materialized around them, a yellow star with 6 planets orbiting in stable patterns. The 4th planet was their destination. A barren world with a thin atmosphere and rust-colored surface. Scanning the 4th planet, the sensor officer reported. I'm detecting a massive structure beneath the surface. It's been buried under centuries of dust, but it's definitely artificial. The energy signature matches what Captain Thorne showed us. Take us into orbit. Prepare a landing team. 30 minutes later, Pelnara found herself descending to the planet's surface in a military shuttle. She was accompanied by Jothik, a security detail, and a team of scientists. The shuttle touched down near the coordinates provided by Captain Thorne. The surface was desolate. Wind-blown dust stretched to the horizon, broken only by ancient impact craters. But beneath their feet, something massive waited. The security team deployed ground-penetrating sensors. The holographic display showed a structure 20 kilometers across, buried 30 meters below the surface. It was shaped like a ring, made from materials that the sensors couldn't identify. How do we access it? One of the scientists asked. Pelnara checked her data tablet. According to the instructions Captain Thorne provided, we need to activate a terminal at these coordinates. She pointed to a location 50 meters away. They walked across the dusty plain, their environmental suits protecting them from the thin atmosphere. At the designated coordinates, they found nothing. Just dust and rock. This is wrong, the scientist complained. There's nothing here. Look closer, Pelnara said. She had studied human sites before. They often built things to blend with the environment, hiding their installations in plain sight. She knelt and brushed away dust from a particular rock formation. Underneath, metal gleamed. Not rust, not corrosion. The material was perfect, as if it had been placed yesterday. "It's a hatch," she announced. "Help me clear it." The security team used their tools to excavate around the metal. Within minutes, they had exposed a circular hatch about 2 meters across. Ancient human symbols marked its surface, along with what appeared to be a handprint scanner. "How do we open it?" Jathic asked. "We don't have human DNA." Pelnara studied the symbols. They were written in the human language, which she could read fluently. "It says emergency access, all sentient beings. I think it's designed to open for anyone." She placed her hand on the scanner. For a moment, nothing happened. Then light bloomed beneath her palm. The scanner glowed blue, analyzing her hand. A synthetic voice spoke in ancient human English. "Non-human biosignature detected. Sentient status confirmed. Emergency protocols engaged. Welcome to Anchor Station 442. Please state the nature of your visit." Pelnara's voice shook slightly. "We're here to learn about the architects. Captain Marcus Thorne sent us." Captain Thorne's authorization code confirmed, granting full access. "Please descend." The hatch split open, revealing a shaft leading down into darkness. Lights activated automatically, illuminating a ladder built into the shaft's wall. "I'll go first," Jathic said. He began climbing down, his forearms making the descent easy. Pelnara followed, then the rest of the team. The shaft went deep, far deeper than 30 meters. Pelnara counted as they descended. 50 meters. 100. 200. Finally, at nearly 300 meters, they reached the bottom. They stepped out into a massive chamber. The space was circular, matching the ring shape they had detected from above. But what dominated the chamber was the structure at its center. It looked like a tower, but instead of reaching up, it extended down through the floor. The tower was made of the same unidentifiable material, covered in flowing patterns that might have been decorative or might have been functional. Energy pulsed through these patterns, a slow, steady rhythm like a heartbeat. "The dimensional anchor," Pelnara whispered. "We're standing inside it." Consoles ringed the chamber's walls, each one dark but clearly designed for operation. As they approached, the consoles activated, displaying information in human language and mathematical notation. Pelnara began reading, translating for the others. "This anchor is one of 714 placed throughout the galaxy. It's been operating in passive mode for 40,000 years, generating a low-level resonance field. When fully activated, it will synchronize with the other anchors to create a galaxy-wide barrier against dimensional intrusion." She manipulated one of the consoles, pulling up schematics. Each anchor is powered by quantum vacuum fluctuations. They're essentially pulling energy from empty space itself. They'll never run out of power. "Show me the activation sequence," Jathic commanded. Pelnara navigated through the menus. What she found made her pause. "Commander, the activation requires 2 things. First, all 714 anchors must be synchronized. This one alone will take approximately 6 hours to fully charge and synchronize with the network. And second, a human biosignature. The activation can only be triggered by someone with human DNA. It's a failsafe to prevent the system from being weaponized or accidentally activated. So we need Captain Thorne. Or another human. But yes, Captain Thorne is likely the only human left in this galaxy." Jathic studied the console thoughtfully. "Can the failsafe be bypassed?" "I don't know. It would require someone with extensive knowledge of human security systems, and even then, it might not be possible. The humans built their failsafes to last." A new voice echoed through the chamber, coming from hidden speakers. "The failsafe cannot be bypassed, Commander. At least not within your 6-month time frame." Everyone turned, weapons raising. The voice belonged to Captain Thorne, but he wasn't physically present. Instead, his hologram appeared near the central tower. "This is a recording," the hologram explained. "Set to activate when someone accesses the anchor station. If you're watching this, it means you've come to verify my claims. Thank you for that." The hologram walked closer to them, or appeared to. The image was perfectly realistic, showing Captain Thorne in his dark uniform. "By now you've realized that the activation requires a human presence. This was intentional. My people didn't want the anchors to become weapons in future conflicts. We didn't want someone to seal off the galaxy for malicious purposes. But the situation has changed. The architects are returning and you need a way to activate the defense. So I'm offering you a choice. The hologram gestured and new images appeared. Choice 1, trust me. Work with me. Allow the Phantom and its fleet to travel the galaxy, repairing and synchronizing the anchors. When the architects arrive, I will activate the resonance field, and your civilizations will survive. You'll lose FTL technology, your empires will fragment, and life will become harder. But you'll live. Choice 2, don't trust me. Attempt to bypass the human failsafes. Spend your 6 months trying to take control of the anchor network. You might succeed, you might not. But while you're trying, the architects will arrive, and I can guarantee that whatever plan you cobble together in 6 months will not be as effective as what humanity spent 15 years building. The hologram stopped walking and faced them directly. I know what I'm asking is difficult. I'm asking you to hand over your survival to a stranger from a dead civilization. I'm asking you to sacrifice your technology, your comfortable lives, your grand civilizations. But I'm also offering you something precious. Time. Life. A future. In 6 months, I will activate the anchor network whether you cooperate or not. But your cooperation will make the transition easier. If we work together, we can prepare. We can help civilizations stockpile resources, establish sublight communication networks, create survival plans. If we don't work together, the activation will come as a shock and many will die in the chaos. The hologram began to fade. The choice is yours. The Phantom will continue its mission regardless. But I truly hope that you'll choose to work with me. Humanity didn't leave this galaxy to die. We left it to live. Help me protect it. The recording ended. The chamber fell silent except for the steady pulse of the anchor's energy. Jothik stood motionless for a long moment. Finally he spoke. Scholar Pelnara, your assessment. He means what he says, Commander. Every word. And he's right. We can't build something better in 6 months. We can barely understand what we're looking at. And if he's lying, if this is some elaborate human trick, then we're already doomed because we can't stop him. His ships are faster than ours, his technology more advanced. If he wanted to conquer us, he could do it without asking permission. Jothik's mandibles clicked in what might have been a laugh. A fair point. He looked around at his team. Opinions? One of the scientists spoke up. Commander, I've been analyzing the anchor's systems. It's beautiful work, elegant, efficient. Whoever designed this wasn't thinking about weapons or conquest. They were thinking about protection. Long-term, lasting protection. War Chief, Jothik addressed the hologram still connected to the ship above. The Saurian War Chief's image appeared. I've been listening to this entire exchange. My opinion is that the human speaks truth. More importantly, he speaks as a warrior. He's offering us the warrior's bargain, sacrifice for survival. I respect that. Jothik nodded slowly. Very well. Send a message to Captain Thorne on all frequencies. Tell him the Vryn Dominion will cooperate. But also tell him this. If he betrays our trust, if this is a trick, the Vryn will hunt him across every reality those gates can reach. We will never stop, never forgive. Is that clear? Crystal clear, Commander, Pelnara said. She began composing the message, her hearts lighter than they had been in days. They were making the right choice. She could feel it. High above the planet, unseen by the landing team, the Phantom watched. Inside the ship's command center, Captain Marcus Thorne allowed himself a small smile. It was a start. One civilization, one choice. 613 more anchors to check. Thousands more choices to make. But it was a start. And after 40,000 years, he had learned to appreciate small victories. 5 months had passed since Commander Jothik made his choice. 5 months of frantic preparation, of civilizations working together in ways they never had before. The Galactic Council, usually a place of arguments and territorial disputes, had transformed into a coordinated effort to survive. Pelnara stood in the observation deck of a new station, built hastily in orbit around the Kepler 442 system. The station served as coordination headquarters, a place where representatives from all major civilizations could monitor the anchor network's status and plan for the dark times ahead. Through the viewport, she could see dozens of ships. Vryn military vessels, Thane cargo haulers, Quilith research ships, Saurian warships, and more, all of them working together, ferrying supplies to remote colonies, establishing emergency communication networks, preparing for the day when FTL travel would cease to exist. The Phantom had been true to its word. Captain Thorne and his fleet of automated hunters had spent 5 months traveling the galaxy, repairing anchors, synchronizing systems, and providing technical assistance to anyone who asked. He had shared human technology freely, teaching modern engineers how to build sublight engines that could reach significant fractions of light speed, how to create quantum-entangled communication devices that would work without accessing dimensional space, and how to prepare for the long isolation ahead. But tension remained. Not everyone trusted Captain Thorne. Some civilizations saw his actions as manipulation, preparing the galaxy for human reconquest. Others believed the architects were a myth, a story invented to justify human interference. These dissidents had formed their own coalition, refusing to cooperate and plotting ways to prevent the anchor activation. Pelnara's tablet chimed. A message from Commander Jathic. "Report to the war room immediately. Priority Alpha." She hurried through the station's corridors, her mind racing through possibilities. Priority Alpha meant something critical had happened. When she entered the war room, she found it packed with representatives from every civilization. The tension was palpable. Jathic stood at the center, his forearms gesturing at a holographic display. "They're here," he said simply. "The architects have arrived." The display showed the galaxy's edge, a region of space that normally showed countless stars. But now a section of that starfield was simply gone. Not dark, not empty, but absent. It was as if reality itself had been erased. "The effect started 3 hours ago," Jathic continued. 7 star systems on the galactic rim have vanished. Not destroyed, not collapsed. They've ceased to exist in our dimensional space. A Thane representative shuddered. "How many people lived in those systems?" "Approximately 4 billion across all species," Jathic said quietly. "They're gone. Our deep space sensors detected no distress signals, no signs of struggle. The system simply stopped existing." Pelnara studied the display, her hands shaking. She had studied human records of the architects, had read their theoretical models, but seeing it happen, seeing reality itself being unmade, that was different. "Where is Captain Thorne?" she asked. "Unknown. The Phantom was last seen near Anchor Station 673, 40 light-years from here. We sent a message but received no response." As if summoned by her words, the display flickered. Captain Thorne's hologram appeared at the table's head. He looked tired, more tired than Pelnara had ever seen him. His uniform was disheveled and his eyes carried the weight of 4 months of preparation. "I've received your reports," he said without preamble. "The architects have indeed arrived, 1 month ahead of my projections. They're moving faster than they did 40,000 years ago. They've grown more efficient. Can you activate the anchors now?" the Saurian war chief demanded. "Not yet. Only 691 of the 714 anchors are fully synchronized. The remaining 23 are in various stages of repair. If I activate the network now, the resonance field will be incomplete. It might slow the architects, but it won't stop them." "How long until all anchors are ready?" Jathic asked. 48 hours. My hunter fleet is working around the clock, but human technology, no matter how advanced, still requires time." "We don't have 48 hours, a Quelith representative shouted. "The architects are consuming 7 systems every 3 hours. At that rate, they'll reach inhabited space within the day." "I'm aware," Thorne said, his voice steady despite the panic around him. "Which is why I need your military forces to buy us time." The room erupted in protest. "You want us to fight those things? We saw what they did. Our weapons are useless." "This is suicide." "Yes," Thorne said simply, cutting through the noise. "I'm asking you to die, to sacrifice yourselves so that others can live. It's what soldiers do." The war chief's scales rippled with what might have been approval. "You speak plainly, human. I respect that. Tell me, will our sacrifice matter? Will dying slow them down?" "Yes, the architects consume matter and energy, but they process it slowly. If you throw enough mass at them, enough energy, you can bog them down. Not forever, not even for long. But for 48 hours? Yes, that's possible." Jathic's mandibles clicked as he processed this. "You're asking us to feed our ships and our people to these entities. I'm asking you to be the shield. Just for 2 days. Give me 2 days and I'll activate the anchors. The architects will be expelled and everyone who survives will have a future." Silence fell over the room. Each representative looked at their people's forces, calculating losses, weighing lives against survival. The war chief spoke first. "The Saurian Empire will commit our full military might. 23 battleships, 200 smaller vessels. We'll hold the line. The Vryn Dominion will match that commitment, Jothik said. We have the largest fleet. We'll anchor the defense. One by one, the other civilizations pledged their forces. Even the Thane, who had no military tradition, offered their cargo ships. We can't fight, but we can serve as obstacles. Our ships are large. They'll take time to consume. Pelnara watched as thousands of ships were committed to certain destruction. The mathematics were simple. The architects needed approximately 2 hours to fully process a capital ship. If they could force the entities to process enough ships spread thin enough, 48 hours was achievable. I'll be there too, Thorn announced. The Phantom will fight alongside you. No, Jothik said firmly. You're the only one who can activate the anchors. If you die, everyone dies. Stay away from the battle. I've been a soldier for 40,000 years, Commander. I don't send others to die while I hide in safety. Then you're a fool. But you're our fool and we need you alive. Jothik's voice softened slightly. Captain Thorn, for 40 millennia you've protected this galaxy alone. Let us protect you this once. Let us earn our survival. Thorn was quiet for a moment. Finally, he nodded. Very well. I'll stay with the anchor network. But I'm leaving 10 hunter ships with your fleet. They're automated, but they're fast and deadly. Use them well. The hologram faded. The war room erupted into activity as military commanders began coordinating the defensive effort. Pelnara watched it all, feeling helpless. She was a scholar, not a soldier. There was nothing she could do, or was there? She accessed the station's database, pulling up every piece of information about the architects that humanity had recorded. There had to be something, some weakness, some way to make the sacrifice more effective. Hours passed as ships assembled at the galaxy's edge. The defensive line formed, thousands of vessels arranged in overlapping formations, not to destroy the architects, which was impossible, but to maximize the time needed to process them. Pelnara found herself on the bridge of the Undaunted, Jothik's flagship. The commander had insisted she stay behind, but she had argued her way aboard. If we're going to die, she had told him, I want to die learning. Maybe in our final moments we'll discover something useful. The Undaunted took its position at the center of the line. Around them, ships from a dozen different civilizations waited. In the distance, reality continued to unravel. The absence was spreading, consuming star after star. They're coming, the sensor officer announced. I'm detecting dimensional distortions. The entities are moving toward our position. Through the viewport, something appeared. But appeared was the wrong word. The architects didn't move through space in any conventional sense. They were simply absent from one location and present in another, as if the intervening distance was irrelevant to them. They were massive, larger than the biggest capital ships, but their form was impossible to describe. They seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, showing different aspects depending on how you looked at them. One moment geometric shapes, the next organic curves, then patterns that hurt to perceive. All ships, Jothik commanded. Fire at will. The void erupted with weapons fire. Energy beams, kinetic projectiles, missiles, plasma bolts, everything that the combined military might of galactic civilization could throw. The attack struck the architects, but nothing happened. The energy simply disappeared, absorbed or converted or erased. The projectiles passed through as if the entities weren't physically present. They're not in our dimensional layer, Pelnara realized. They're phased slightly out of sync with our reality. That's why weapons don't work. Then how do we stop them? Jothik demanded. We don't stop them. We slow them down by feeding them mass. Physical contact, not weapons fire. Jothik understood immediately. All ships cease fire. Ramming protocols. Close to contact distance and maintain physical contact as long as possible. The first wave of ships moved forward, accelerating toward the architects. When they made contact, something remarkable happened. The ships began to dissolve, not explosively but gradually. Metal flowed like liquid, converted into energy and absorbed. The process took time. The architects paused, processing their meal. The defensive line had bought its first minutes. But there were dozens of architects and they were learning. They began moving around the defensive line, seeking easier targets. Ships had to reposition constantly, throwing themselves into the entity's paths. Pelnara watched from the Undaunted's bridge as ship after ship sacrificed itself. A Thane cargo hauler, its crew evacuated, flew on automatic pilot into an architect's form and vanished over the course of 90 minutes. A squadron of Quilith research vessels, repurposed as obstacles, lasted 2 hours combined. Saurian battleships, their crews still aboard, chose to go down fighting, maintaining contact until their hulls breached and their crews were exposed to vacuum. Hours passed. The defensive line held, but at terrible cost. Hundreds of ships had been consumed. Thousands of crew members had died.
And yet the architects kept coming.
More appeared, drawn by the abundance of matter and energy. "Status report," Jathik commanded, his voice showing strain. "We've held for 38 hours, Commander," the tactical officer reported. "Current projections indicate we can maintain defensive integrity for another 12 hours before our forces are depleted. Then we'll make it. Just barely, but we'll make it." A new alarm sounded. Pelnara checked her console and felt her blood run cold. "Commander, I'm detecting more architects appearing. Not at the galaxy's edge. Here, in the middle of inhabited space." The display updated, showing 3 new architects manifesting near major population centers. One appeared near the Vryn homeworld, another near the Quilith Alliance's core systems, the third near the Thane Collective's trade hub. "How?" Jathik whispered. "How did they get past our defenses?" "They didn't," Pelnara said, understanding flooding through her. "They're not limited to traveling through normal space. They can appear anywhere, anytime. The ones at the galaxy's edge were just the vanguard. These are the real attack." The implications were devastating. The defensive line had been for nothing. The architects could simply bypass them, appearing directly at populated worlds. Billions of lives were suddenly in immediate danger. "New plan," Jathik said, his voice hard. "All ships, break formation. Return to your homeworlds. Defend your people." "Commander, that will leave the edge undefended," the tactical officer protested. "The edge doesn't matter anymore. Our people matter. Move." The fleet scattered, each civilization's ships racing toward their threatened homeworlds. The Undaunted turned and jumped to FTL, heading for the Vryn home system. When they arrived, the scene was chaos. The architect hung in space near the planet, already processing orbital stations. Evacuation ships fled in all directions, carrying refugees. Defense platforms fired uselessly at the entity. "Captain Thorne," Jathik broadcast on all frequencies. "I don't care if you're not ready. Activate the anchors now, or there won't be anyone left to save." For a long moment, no response came. Then Thorne's voice, tired and sad. "I understand, Commander. Beginning activation sequence. All ships, all stations, prepare for dimensional lockdown. This is it. No turning back now." Across the galaxy, 714 anchors began to pulse with power. Their rhythms synchronized, creating a resonance that spread through dimensional space like ripples in water. The field grew, expanded, connecting anchor to anchor in an invisible web of protection. In the Vryn home system, the architect suddenly stopped. It hung motionless in space, no longer processing the station it had been consuming. Then, like oil repelled by water, it began to slide away, not moving but being pushed, expelled from normal space. The same thing happened at every location where architects had appeared. They resisted, trying to maintain their presence, but the resonance field was too strong. One by one, they were forced back into the dark space between dimensions. In the command center of the Phantom, Captain Marcus Thorne watched the anchors complete their activation. The field was stable, complete, effective. The architects were gone. But so was FTL travel. Across the galaxy, every faster-than-light drive simultaneously shut down. Ships in mid-jump were forcibly ejected into normal space. Quantum communication networks went silent. The dimensional gates humanity had built to evacuate, sealed forever. The galaxy had been saved, but the cost was exactly what Thorne had warned about. Civilization as they knew it was over. The long isolation had begun. 40 years had passed since the day the galaxy changed forever. 40 years since FTL travel ceased. Quantum networks fell silent, and the great civilizations found themselves suddenly isolated across impossible distances. Pelnara stood on the surface of Earth, something she had never imagined possible. The homeworld of humanity had been forgotten by most species, dismissed as unimportant. But Captain Thorne had invited her here to see something important. She was older now. Her 6 eyes dimmed slightly with age, but her curiosity remained as sharp as ever. The planet was beautiful. Humanity had been gone for 40,000 years, yet Earth had healed itself. Forests covered the ruins of ancient cities. Oceans teemed with life. The atmosphere was clean and breathable. Nature had reclaimed what humanity had left behind. Captain Thorne stood beside her, looking older too. He had spent the past 40 years traveling between worlds using sublight drives, checking anchor stations, helping civilizations adapt to their new reality. His ship, the Phantom, orbited overhead, as impressive as ever but showing signs of wear that no maintenance could completely hide. "Thank you for coming," Thorn said. "I know it took you 5 years to make the journey." "It was worth it," Pelnara replied. "I've never seen anything like this planet. The way it's recovered, grown wild again. It's remarkable. Earth is resilient. Humanity learned that lesson long ago." He gestured toward a path leading into what had once been a city. Now trees grew through ancient buildings and vines covered skyscrapers. "Walk with me. There's something you need to see." They walked together through the green wilderness. Pelnara had spent 40 years chronicling the changes that had swept through galactic civilization. The collapse had been terrible, but not as catastrophic as many had feared. The Vryn Dominion had fragmented into hundreds of independent systems, each one developing its own culture and governance. Some had prospered, building strong local economies. Others had struggled, falling into isolation and decline. But none had died out completely. The Thane Collective had actually thrived. Their tradition of self-sufficiency and their slow, deliberate way of thinking proved perfect for the new era. They had established sublight trade routes between their nearest systems, creating a network that was slower but more stable than the old FTL empire. The Quillith Alliance had transformed entirely. Cut off from their central government, individual Quillith worlds had developed unique philosophical and cultural identities. Pelnara's own homeworld had become a center of learning, where scholars studied the past and planned for a future that would unfold over millennia, rather than decades. "You wanted to know if your sacrifice would matter," Pelnara said as they walked. "If surviving would be worth the cost. And has it been? Yes, it's been hard. Millions died in the initial chaos. Colonies that couldn't produce their own food starved. Systems too dependent on imported technology collapsed. But we survived. We adapted. And now, 40 years later, we're building something new. Something better, I think. Better how? More sustainable. The old civilizations grew too fast, too aggressive. They expanded without thinking about the consequences. Now expansion takes centuries instead of years. It forces us to be thoughtful, deliberate. Every new colony, every new outpost, it's a generational commitment." Thorn nodded slowly. "That was part of humanity's calculation. We knew forcing slower-than-light travel would change how civilizations behaved. We hoped it would be for the better." They reached a clearing where the ruins of a building stood. Unlike most structures, this one had been partially restored. Human machinery, ancient but functional, surrounded it. The dimensional anchor that protected Earth pulsed at the clearing's center, its rhythm steady and eternal. "This is Anchor Station 1, Thorn explained. "The first one humanity built. The prototype for all the others. I've kept it maintained, visited it every year." "Why bring me here?" Pelnara asked. "Because today something is going to happen, something I've been waiting 40,000 years to see." As if on cue, the anchor's pulse changed. The rhythm remained steady, but the quality of the energy shifted. Pelnara's instruments showed readings she didn't understand. "What's happening?" "The gates are opening," Thorn said quietly. "The dimensional barriers humanity passed through 40,000 years ago. They were designed to be one-way only, to ensure the architects couldn't follow. But they were also designed to eventually reverse, to become two-way. The anchor network was the key. Once it had operated successfully for 40,000 years, proving the galaxy was safe, the gates would activate." Pelnara's hearts raced. "You mean humanity is coming home?" The air in front of the anchor shimmered. Space itself seemed to fold, creating an opening that shouldn't exist. Through that opening, light poured, brighter than anything Pelnara had ever seen. And in that light, shapes began to form. People, humans, walking through from somewhere else. The first one through was a woman, young and wearing clothing unlike anything in the historical records. She stepped onto Earth's soil and immediately fell to her knees, touching the ground with both hands. Tears ran down her face, more followed. Dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. They came through in groups, families holding children, elders supported by younger relatives. They wore different styles of clothing, spoke in dialects of human language that had evolved separately over 40 millennia. But they were unmistakably human. How many? Pelnara whispered. "Across all gates throughout the galaxy, approximately 43 billion, Thorn answered. Humanity scattered across hundreds of parallel universes. Each one developed differently, adapted to different conditions. But they all remembered Earth. They all remembered home. A man approached Thorn and Pelnara. He was older, with white hair and eyes that had seen things from other realities. He wore a simple uniform marked with symbols that resembled but didn't match those on Thorn's uniform. "Captain Marcus Thorn," the man said in ancient human English. "We received your signal. The anchors are stable, the architects are contained, and the galaxy is safe. Permission to return home?" Thorn's voice was thick with emotion. "Permission granted. Welcome home." The two men embraced. Pelnara realized she was witnessing something profound. This wasn't just a reunion. It was the fulfillment of a promise made 40,000 years ago. Humanity had not abandoned the galaxy. They had protected it, preserved it, and now they were returning to it. Scholar Pelnara, the white-haired man, turned to her. "Captain Thorn has told us about you, about the civilizations that arose in humanity's absence. We've been watching, listening to the transmissions that leaked through the gates. We're impressed by what you've built." "What we've built?" Pelnara said. "You're the ones who saved us. You built the anchors, left the Phantom to guard us. We built the tools. You used them to save yourselves. That takes courage," he smiled. "We're not here to reclaim the galaxy, Scholar. We're here to join it, as equals, as neighbors. The territory we once controlled is yours now. We'll find new places to settle, empty systems to transform. There's room enough for everyone." Over the following hours, Pelnara watched as more humans emerged. Each gate across the galaxy was doing the same thing, she learned. Humans returning to settled regions, but also heading to the unexplored areas. They brought new technology, advanced sciences developed in parallel universes, but they also brought a philosophy of cooperation. "We learned our lesson," Thorn explained later, as they watched the sun set over Earth. 40,000 years ago, we were too aggressive, too quick to expand. We drew the architect's attention through our own recklessness. This time we'll grow slowly. We'll work with our neighbors instead of competing with them. "What about you?" Pelnara asked. "You've fulfilled your mission. The Phantom's patrol is over. What will you do now?" Thorn was quiet for a long moment. "I'm tired, Scholar. So very tired. I've been awake on and off for 40,000 years. I've watched galaxies die, civilizations rise and fall. I've been alone with only my crew and my duty for company. I think I'd like to rest. You've earned it. But first I have one more task." He looked at her with eyes that had seen eons pass. "The anchors need maintaining. Someone needs to check them, ensure they stay functional for the next 40,000 years. I've trained crews, human and otherwise, to do this work. But I think we need something more. A new institution, one that transcends species. Guardians of the Anchors, we could call it. You want me to help build that? You've spent your entire life studying humanity, understanding what we were and what we tried to accomplish. You're the perfect person to bridge the gap between human and non-human, past and future. Will you do it?" Pelnara looked out over Earth, over the forests and oceans that had reclaimed a planet humanity had left behind. She thought about the past 40 years, the struggles and adaptations, the civilizations that had survived impossible odds. She thought about the future, about humans and non-humans learning to coexist in a galaxy forced to grow slowly and thoughtfully. "Yes," she said, "I'll do it. For both our peoples." Thorn smiled, the first genuine smile she had ever seen from him. "Thank you, Scholar. Thank you for everything." As night fell over Earth, campfires began to dot the landscape. Humans gathered around them, telling stories of the universes they had visited, the wonders they had seen. Some fires had non-humans sitting among them, species from the current galaxy meeting the returning humans for the first time. High above, the Phantom orbited in silence, its long vigil finally complete. The ship that had patrolled the darkness for 40 millennia could finally rest. In the weeks that followed, Pelnara worked with Captain Thorn to establish the Guardian Institute. It would be headquartered on Earth, neutral ground that belonged to humanity's past but would serve everyone's future. The Institute would train specialists from every species to maintain the anchor network, monitor dimensional stability, and watch for any signs of the Architect's return. Commander Jathic arrived 5 years later, his journey from the Vryn territories long and difficult. He was older now, his chitin dulled with age, but his mind remained sharp. He stood with Pelnara and Thorn on a hill overlooking the Guardian Institute's campus. "You've built something impressive," Jathic said, watching students from a dozen species studying together. I never thought I'd see the day when Vryn and human worked side by side without suspicion. The galaxy has changed, Thorn replied. We all had to change with it. I came to apologize, Jothik said abruptly. 40 years ago I didn't trust you. I thought you might be manipulating us, preparing to reconquer. I was wrong. You were cautious, Thorn corrected. That's not the same as being wrong. Caution kept your people alive. I never blamed you for it. Still, I judged your species by our standards. The Vryn expand and conquer. I assumed humans did the same. But you don't, do you? We did once, Thorn said quietly. 40,000 years ago, humanity was aggressive, territorial. We pushed boundaries without thinking about consequences. That behavior attracted the architects. We paid a terrible price for our arrogance. The humans returning now, they've had 40,000 years to reflect on that mistake. They're different. Better, I hope. Jothik's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. The Vryn Dominion is fragmenting. Each system becomes more independent every year. Some see it as failure, the end of our empire. But I think it might be evolution. We're learning to exist without conquest. That's good, Pelnara said. All of us are learning new ways to exist. The galaxy is too big, travel too slow for empires to function anymore. We're becoming something else. Communities instead of empires. Cooperation instead of competition. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over Earth. 3 beings from 3 different species, representing 3 different eras of galactic history, united by shared experience and hope for the future. What will you do now? Pelnara asked Thorn. The Institute is established. The anchors are monitored. Your duty is complete, Thorn smiled. I'm going to sleep, Scholar. Really sleep, not stasis. I have a small house in what used to be called the Amazon. Trees grow through the walls, animals visit the porch. It's quiet, peaceful. I'm going to spend whatever time I have left watching things grow instead of watching for threats. You've earned your rest, Captain, Jothik said. The galaxy owes you more than it can ever repay. The galaxy owes me nothing. I did my duty, nothing more. The real heroes were the ones who fought the architects, who sacrificed their ships and lives to buy time. I just turned a key. You did more than that, Pelnara insisted. You kept hope alive. For 40,000 years you maintained your post, never giving up, never abandoning your mission. That kind of dedication, that's what humanity means to me now. Not your technology or your weapons, but your refusal to quit even when everything seems impossible. Thorn looked uncomfortable with the praise. Any species would have done the same. No, Jothik said firmly. They wouldn't have. I've studied your records, Captain. Humanity knew the architects might not return for 100,000 years or ever. Yet you stayed anyway. You sacrificed your life, your future, your everything, just in case. That's not normal dedication. That's something special. Before Thorn could respond, a young human student ran up the hill, breathing hard. Captain Thorn!
Scholar Pelnara.
You need to see this. They followed the student to the Institute's observation center. The main display showed sensor data from multiple anchor stations. Something was different. The readings showed fluctuations in the dimensional barriers, but not threatening ones. These fluctuations were regular, patterned, almost like communication. What are we looking at? Pelnara asked. A Quillith scientist answered. We believe the dimensional gates are evolving. They're no longer just one-way or two-way portals. They're becoming something more sophisticated. Look at these mathematical patterns. The display showed equations that made Pelnara's head hurt, but Thorn leaned forward, his eyes widening. That's not possible. Those equations describe multi-universal synchronization. The gates are connecting not just to parallel universes, but creating a network between them. What does that mean? Jothik asked. It means humanity didn't just scatter across parallel universes, Thorn said slowly. They connected those universes, built bridges, established communication, and now those bridges are linking to our universe. We're not just getting humanity back. We're joining a multi-universal community. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't spent 40,000 years in isolation. They had spent that time building something unprecedented, connecting realities that were never meant to touch. And now they were inviting the rest of the galaxy to join that network. Over the following months, more evidence appeared. Technologies began emerging from the gates, devices that could peek into parallel universes, mathematics that described trans-dimensional physics. Human scientists worked with non-human scholars, sharing knowledge that had been developed across multiple realities. But the humans were careful. deliberate. They shared slowly, ensuring each civilization could absorb and understand before moving to the next concept. They had learned patience during their long exile. One evening, Pelnara received a message on her personal communicator. It was from Captain Thorne, audio only. His voice sounded peaceful, content. "Scholar Pelnara, I wanted to thank you one last time before I truly retire. You believed in humanity when you had no reason to. You trusted my word about the architects. You helped bridge the gap between my people and yours. The galaxy is better because of you." "I did what anyone would have done," Pelnara replied. "No, you did what you chose to do. There's a difference. Choice defines us more than capability. You chose to trust, to help, to build instead of destroy. That choice mattered." "What will you do in retirement, Captain?" "I'm going to read, Scholar. I have 40,000 years of history to catch up on. I want to know everything that happened while I was watching the darkness. Every civilization that rose, every discovery that was made, every story that was told. It will take me the rest of my life to read it all, and I couldn't be happier about that." Pelnara laughed. "Then I'll send you my complete works. 40 years of research into human civilization and the changes that followed the architect's repulsion. I look forward to reading every word. Goodbye, Scholar. May your work continue to bridge world. Goodbye, Captain. May you find the peace you've earned." The communication ended. Pelnara never spoke to Captain Marcus Thorne again. But she heard about him occasionally, through stories passed along by travelers. He lived in his house in the forest, reading and writing, occasionally hosting visitors who made the long journey to speak with the man who had saved the galaxy. He died peacefully 15 years later, surrounded by books and friends, both human and non-human. The galaxy mourned him, this human who had been alone for so long but never let loneliness turn to bitterness. Pelnara attended the memorial service on Earth. Thousands gathered, representing every species in the galaxy. They told stories of Captain Thorne's dedication, his sacrifice, his quiet strength. But the story that meant the most came from a young human child. "My grandmother came through the gates," the child said. "She told me about the Phantom, about Captain Thorne watching over us for 40,000 years. She said he proved that distance doesn't matter when you love something enough to protect it. He loved the galaxy even though it wasn't his anymore, even though he could have left. He stayed because staying was right." That, Pelnara thought, was the perfect summary of humanity. They stayed because it was right. 70 years after the anchors activated, Pelnara was old. Her 6 eyes had dimmed. Her body moved slowly, but her mind remained sharp. She sat in her office at the Guardian Institute, reviewing reports from anchor stations across the galaxy. Everything was stable, the network functioning perfectly. A knock on her door interrupted her work. "Come in," she called. A young Vryn entered, one of her students. "Director Pelnara, I have a question about the historical records." "Ask." "Why did humanity really leave?" "I've read the official explanation about the architects, but there's something that doesn't add up. Humanity was powerful, technologically advanced. They could have fought. Why choose to evacuate instead?" Pelnara smiled. She had been expecting this question for years. "What do you think the answer is?" The young Vryn hesitated. "I think they left because fighting would have endangered everyone else. The architects were attracted by aggressive expansion, by the energy signatures of conflict. If humanity had fought, they would have turned the galaxy into a battlefield. Other species would have been caught in the crossfire." "Very good. Yes, that's part of it. Humanity chose exile to protect everyone else. But there's another reason too." "What reason?" "Hope. If humanity stayed and fought, they would probably lose. And losing meant extinction. Not just for them, but potentially for everyone. By leaving, by scattering across parallel universes, they ensured their survival. They turned certain death into temporary separation. And they left behind the tools for others to survive too. The anchors. The anchors. Humanity bet that other species would rise, would develop, would eventually be able to defend the galaxy that humans had to abandon. It was a long bet, 40,000 years long. But it paid off." The student thought about this. So humanity trusted us. Species they'd never met, civilizations that didn't exist yet. They trusted we'd be worthy of the galaxy they left behind. Exactly. And we were. We proved them right. When the architects returned, we stood together. We sacrificed. We survived. We earned the galaxy that humanity protected for us. The student left deep in thought. Pelnara returned to her report satisfied. The lessons of the past were being learned, carried forward into the future. She worked for another hour before exhaustion forced her to rest. She leaned back in her chair, looking out the window at Earth's forests. Somewhere out there, in 1,000 different locations, dimensional gates stood open. Humans and non-humans traveled between universes, sharing knowledge and building connections. The galaxy humanity had left behind was thriving. Slower than before, more thoughtful but healthier. The long isolation forced by the anchors had taught every species to value sustainability over expansion, cooperation over conquest. And in the darkness beyond the galaxy's edge, the dimensional resonance field continued its eternal pulse. 714 anchors working in perfect harmony, keeping the architects at bay, protecting all life within. Pelnara closed her eyes, content. The story that had begun 40,000 years ago, when humanity chose to leave, had reached a happy ending. Not perfect, but happy. Humanity had been silent for 40 millennia. But their silence had been a form of speech, their absence a gift. They left the galaxy room to grow, to learn, to become something worthy of joining humanity's multi-universal community. And when they returned not as conquerors but as friends. The Phantom Cruiser's long patrol was over. Its captain had found rest. And the galaxy, all the species within it, had found a future worth living. That was humanity's true legacy. Not technology or weapons, but hope. Hope that lasted 40,000 years. Hope that crossed dimensional barriers. Hope that turned silence into the most powerful message of all. We are watching. We will return. And when we do, we will find you ready. The galaxy had been ready. And the reunion, when it came, had been worth the wait.